Good morning, everybody. It is 7 o'clock. The UK is buying up tens of millions more vaccines. And according to the World Health Organization, that's not only selfish, but it also means COVID won't be wiped out globally because there aren't enough for the poorest countries. What's sensible and what's fair? Plus, what to do about the Christmas party? Should we listen to ministers or scientists? This morning we'll be hearing from both, including, in a few minutes, the Science Minister, George Freeman. And
I take his hand, it's so cold to touch, not like the man and the father I miss so much.
Just for Dad, the son of one of rugby's finest, Nigel Starmer-Smith, will tell us about the song detailing his father's battle with Alzheimer's. And goodness, what made that raging bull elephant do that? He charged a safari vehicle in a South African game park. We'll speak to an expert on elephant behaviour, Dr. Joyce Poole. It's Thursday, the 2nd of December. The UK seals a deal to buy more than 100 million extra COVID doses, including modified doses for new strains like the Omicron variant.
I'm live at a pharmacy in North London where the pressure is on to get those jabs into arms as quickly as possible.
Staying safe, why the new variant could prolong the isolation of the families of highly vulnerable people.
Knowing that it's going to protect my dad from catching whatever's out there and just keeping him safe, it does tell you that you are doing a good thing.
The Women's Tennis Association suspends all tournaments in China over concerns for the safety of the player Peng Shuai. At the centre of the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell, her defence team tried to undermine a witness who claimed the British socialite was involved in sex trafficking for Jeffrey Epstein.
The defence hopes to build up this picture of false memories and convey the idea to the jury of them being unreliable witnesses.
The Supreme Court begins the case which will decide the future of abortion in much of the United States. Morning, everybody. The government has agreed to buy more than 100 million more doses of COVID-19 vaccine shots, speeding up the orders as it tries to curb the spread of the new Omicron variant. The deal will include access to modified vaccines to counter new strains. But it comes as the World Health Organization launches a campaign for global vaccine parity, saying that unless people in the poorest countries are vaccinated, new variants will continue to emerge. The UK government has ordered a total of 114 million extra coronavirus vaccines to help cover the next 2 years. 60 million are from Moderna and 54 million are from Pfizer. It includes access to modified vaccinations to combat Omicron or other emerging variants. Well, who's going to do all of this? Let's chat to Ashna. She's outside a pharmacy, a chemist for us in North London this morning. And a lot of this is going to fall to the chemists, isn't it, Ashna? Good morning.
It really is. It's going to be down to those hospital hubs, those community pharmacies and also those bigger hospitals to try and distribute all of these vaccines. You're right, though. The key in all of this is the modified vaccines as well. It's all very well accelerating the supply of it. But with these new variants and variants of interest and variants of concern, of course, the vaccine needs to adapt and be sort of morphed, I suppose, to be able to tackle these variants. And this is exactly what this new supplier will be doing. They've signed this contract with Moderna, with Pfizer and BioNTech as well, and this comes amid now the number of cases of this variant of concern has gone up to 32 across England and Scotland. Of course, it is down to places like this to distribute those vaccines, particularly that booster programme, that huge booster campaign, down to places like this to get those jabs into arms. At the moment, it's targeted at the population who are aged 40 and over, but there is the ambition that by the end of January, all adults over 18 are going to end up getting these jabs. So they've got a huge job ahead because you've got to balance up, the speed at which this variant is spreading, but also whether they can can keep up with the pace of it and whether it's going to reach its peak by the point that we're all vaccinated against it and given that extra layer of protection. So a lot to watch, but it is good news in the eyes of many that this contract has been signed. But when you speak to the World Health Organization, a big sort of red flag for them is surrounding vaccine equity.
Hey, Ashna, for now, thanks so much indeed. Thanks a lot. The new Omicron variant is already having a major impact in South Africa, where the number of new COVID-19 cases is surging from a weekly average of around 300 new cases a day to 1,000 last week to more than 8,000 cases reported yesterday. New cases have almost doubled in 24 hours. More than 8,500 infections recorded yesterday, up from nearly 4,400 the day before. The new strain accounted for 3/4 of the virus genome sequence last month, according to South Africa's National Institute for Communicable Diseases. Scientists believe they've found why the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine has, in a few very rare cases, caused blood clots. Researchers in Cardiff and the US have discovered a chain reaction after protein from the blood mixes with the vaccine. The vaccine was withdrawn from some age groups in the UK and elsewhere, but AstraZeneca says it has saved more than 1 million lives worldwide. Joining us now is the Science Minister, George Freeman. Mr Freeman, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you for joining us. Well, you were promised a plan by your colleagues, a rollout plan, earlier on this week. Where's the plan?
Morning, Kay. Yeah, good to join you. Today we've got all of the global biopharma leaders here in London to announce another £500 million package into UK life science. And as your report highlights, this pandemic isn't over, and the UK is leading in both the science of defeating this virus and in the rollout package for vaccines here in the UK. We've procured another 114 million doses, so we've got the doses here for patients over the next few months. And we're in a global race to make sure we defeat this pandemic. And I'm here today to talk about how UK science is right on the front line of that. We're working across government to lead the global fight to defeat the virus.
And in answer to my question?
Yeah, so we're working right now across government on how we both accelerate the rollout internationally of vaccines. The truth is, we're not safe until the world is safe, and the UK has led that charge. We've invested more per capita than any other nation. We're huge supporters of COVAX, and at the G7 summit this summer, we led the charge on how globally we support international rollout. Here in the UK, our vaccine rollout programme is setting the benchmark, and that's why we're able this year to not impose the very tough, quite draconian regulations we had to last year in a way that other countries are. So this is UK science leadership and NHS leadership, and the vaccine rollout programme leading here in the UK in terms of science, but also allowing our citizens to enjoy fewer restrictions than in other countries.
On Monday, we were promised a plan. It's Thursday. We haven't got a plan. People don't know when they can have their boosters. Where's the plan?
The NHS have a plan. It's being rolled out and people can apply now. I've just had my text last night. My booster appointment has been offered for next week, and people across my constituency and around the country are able now to get their boosters. And having had COVID myself 3 weeks ago, this is not a nice disease. I was double jabbed, went down for a week, and I would encourage everybody, contact your GP, get on the app, book your booster jab. The NHS is there, we're rolling it out, we've procured the vaccines, and we're leading the world in that rollout. So this is good news. I just encourage everyone. We all need to make sure we get those jabs.
In your 20s and 30s, when can you go onto the app to book your jab?
So if you contact your GP, there are slight differences around the country, but at the moment, we're the first country to get to this point. We've got 80% of the whole country double jabbed, and we've got nearly 90% of the whole country first jabbed, and we're now rolling it out fast. Now, some GP practices are rolling slightly quicker than others, and that's what you'd expect. But if people contact their GP now and go on the app, they can book, to get their booster jab or their second jab.
Minister, that's not true. Minister, you can't get your booster at the moment if you're in your 20s. The question is, we were told earlier on in the week that there's a plan. I'm just asking you where the plan is and when people in their 20s and 30s can book their booster.
Well, the NHS are leading on that rollout. I haven't got at my fingertips today exactly which GP practices are making it available today, but we are accelerating that rollout, and it is key, and we are putting that in place so that the next generation, the next age cohort, can get their booster jab as quickly as possible. But the NHS has got to put that alongside clearing the backlog of cancer cases and all of the other issues that the pandemic has caused. I think the public understand that. We have to do everything we can. The NHS is flat out. I was in constituency surgeries in my patch last week, and the booster rollout and the jab programme is working. I'm not getting a lot of complaints from people saying the UK is behind on its vaccination programme. Of course, we all need to move fast, and we are, and the NHS is doing that. That's why we've put more money in to support that programme.
Minister, we only have a limited amount of time. The answer is you don't know the answer. Let me put this to you. South Africa averaging 300 cases. No, you don't.
The answer is the NHS is doing a brilliant job.
Minister, if you're in your 20s, you don't know when you can have the jab. Just admit to that, because that is fundamentally the case, isn't it?
No. The case is that the NHS is rolling out the vaccine programme, and if you contact your GP and book it, you will get your jab.
It's not true. It's just not true. It's just not true, Minister. South Africa averaging 300 cases a day. That has leapt to 8,500 cases yesterday. How concerned are we?
Yeah, well, as the Prime Minister and the Health Secretary, Chancellor Secretary have set out, we are concerned. That's why we've put in place some pretty important, reasonable measures to make sure that red list countries have to test before they come. We're trying to make sure that the global economy can carry on working while minimising the risk. And I think that's the key. In those countries where the new variant is surging, we need to be quite tough and make sure that people aren't bringing it in, contain it, and then when it's here, make sure that we're containing it here in the UK. We did it before. We've learnt a huge amount in the last year, and we'll do it again. And today, we've got all the global leaders in the vaccine industry here because the UK is leading the charge globally. This is a pandemic. It isn't over yet, and the UK is leading in making sure that we both tackle the virus and make sure that we're leading in the rollout programme.
Given that, how many doses have we delivered to COVAX? We promised 100 million, didn't we?
Yeah, the problem with COVAX actually has been, and I set up a commission last year before coming back into government, that the global manufacturing supply chains, for example, India, a major manufacturer of vaccines around the world, India was hit really hard by the pandemic. And one of the things we set out in our G7 summit in the summer, which is partly what we're picking up today, is to make sure that we've got those global supply chains. So Britain has put the funding in, we've procured the vaccines. The key is getting the rollout internationally into some of those hard-to-reach countries in Africa, in some of the Pacific Island states. And that is a global challenge. That's why we're one of the biggest contributors to COVAX, who are doing a brilliant job. We've put the vaccines in. We've got to make sure that we support them in rolling them out internationally, because, as I say, we're not safe, the global economy isn't safe until we've defeated this pandemic across the whole world.
We promised 100 million. How many have we delivered?
We've supported that 100 million. They're in the pipeline. That isn't the issue, Kay. The issue is getting them out around the country, which is why we're focusing today on... No,
how many have we delivered?
I'm sorry?
How many have we delivered of the 100 million that we promised?
You mean have we delivered to COVAX?
Yes.
Yeah, we're on schedule. I haven't got that number at my fingertips now, but we are on schedule. The issue isn't lack of you. Yeah, but that isn't what's holding up the global rollout programme, Kate. What's holding it up, as I say, is that international supply chain issue around the world. Nobody is saying we're not globally vaccinating enough because the UK hasn't supported. Sorry?
Why are we taking so many more vaccines here in the UK then? Tens of millions more of what we've ordered. Shouldn't we, given that we're not safe until everyone's safe, shouldn't we be diverting those to third world countries?
So it's a balance, Kay. I mean, we've got another variant. I think the British public would expect us to make sure that we've made sure, to your earlier point in this interview, that we're providing the supply here in the UK. And that's why we've just procured another 114 million doses precisely to make sure we can deliver that rollout here in the UK as well. This is a balance. We've got to make sure that our citizens are safe and that the global vaccine rollout through COVAX is supported. And that is what we're committed to doing, and it's why today we've got, as part of that G7 follow-up, all the global leaders in vaccine science here in the UK at number 10
You've told me 3 times
to
now,
make
Minister,
sure we're
that they're all
continuing
here.
to focus on it.
OK,
Yeah,
great, we've got
but that's
that point.
Why, okay, because it's an international
if I
challenge.
can go on, because we only have a short period of time. As you know, Minister, it's always difficult when you're not with me because obviously I'm interrupting you, so forgive me for that. Given that you say that we need more vaccines in the UK, are we going to inoculate 5 to 11-year-olds? They are in Italy and they are in Israel.
Well, we're looking at that, the science on that and the balance of rollout. Patrick Vallance, as our chief scientist, and Chris Whitty are advising on that, and it's their advice that guides us. The urgent priority now, as you highlighted earlier, is to make sure that we roll out the jab programme through the population. And with Christmas coming, we want to make sure that as many people as possible are double jabbed. I think in due course, we would like to make sure that all of those who are vulnerable have the right level of protection. The data at the moment suggests that young children are much, much less vulnerable. But as and when that data changes, we're guided by the science and we stand ready. It's partly why we've procured the vaccines, to make sure that we can deliver what our citizens and patients need.
OK, we are out of time. I just want to ask you one final question before I let you go, though, Minister, if you will indulge me. Apparently, Emmanuel Macron has said it's very sad to see a great country with which we could do so much led by a clown. Talking about Boris Johnson, what would you say in response?
Well, I think we're into pantomime season, aren't we? And there's a French election coming. It's a pretty unhelpful word. Of course, the Prime Minister isn't a clown. He's the elected Prime Minister of this country with a very big mandate, leading this country through the pandemic. The truth is, we are looking to work very closely with France on the border issue, on tackling the problem of European migration at source. That's why we're investing in trying to stabilise countries so that people aren't coming here. And with France, we need to make sure that people in France aren't being supplied with boats and being pushed out into the Channel. The Home Secretary is working closely with French counterparts on it, and the Prime Minister and the UK government is looking for a sensible conversation with France about it. So I'm confident that actually Anglo-French relations are rather better than that quote suggests.
Are you planning a lovely Christmas? Well,
I think all of us are hoping that this Christmas we'll be able to enjoy more freedom than we did last Christmas. But you know, we're in this pandemic, and hopefully this new variant isn't going to sweep through the country, and we won't have to put in place those restrictions last year. And the vaccine programme is our best defence against that. So I think everyone, as the Prime Minister said, should be able to plan for Christmas, but we're going to have to be sensible, and that's why we've upped the guidance. Masks on public transport, masks in shops, but we also want people to be able to go to clubs and to pubs and be able to have a drink and eat, which you can't do if you're wearing a mask. It's common sense, really. I think the British public understand that. The more we can prevent the transmission of the virus, the more we'll be able to enjoy the freedoms we all cherish. And to me, wearing a mask on a tube in winter weather particularly isn't onerous. And I think if we wear masks in shops and on public transport, we've got a higher chance of being able to enjoy those freedoms we all cherish.
OK, good to talk to you, Minister. Thank you so much for taking the time. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Kay.
Well, the new Omicron variant of COVID-19 could have far more wide-ranging consequences for some people than the need to wear a mask or miss a Christmas party. For families of the most vulnerable people, it could mean more time in isolation, and for some, that has already meant staying behind closed doors for more than a year, as Emma Birchley reports.
For 12 long months, the Priddies have been stuck at home. No leaving for school or work.
Lunch is ready.
It's a choice they made together after Greg was diagnosed with a brain tumour in lockdown last November.
I had to tell Joe over the phone and struggled to get the words out. The first few days when I was in hospital, all sorts of things are going through your mind. You know, how long have I got? You know, is it terminal? And we're going to see the kids grow up.
High-dose chemotherapy and a stem cell transplant stripped his immune system, and doctors suggested they shield even when it was no longer government advice.
It is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. Obviously, we're missing our friends and family, but more it is the children missing school and their friends.
Amelia is 16, her brother is just 13.
Knowing that it's going to protect my dad from catching whatever's out there and just keeping him safe, it does tell you that you are doing a good thing. It may not seem it from other people because they're stuck in a house, they can't go out or socialise or anything, but knowing that you're protecting your dad from obviously catching anything, it's really, really good.
Instead of moping, the children have fundraised for brain tumour research, making more than £13,000 so far. Amelia choreographed 20 requested dances in 20 days. And Wills has worn a mini track in the lawn, running a mile a day. Up to 4 miles daily in a festive outfit until Christmas.
It makes me want to make sure everyone in the world knows about how bad brain tumours are. And to me, it helps me with my rugby, so and it's making me more determined to get back on the pitch, being stuck in.
Another day, another bit of exercise to build my strength back up again from all the chemo.
Next month, once Greg's immune system is back in action, they'll finally leave the house after another Christmas on their own, but will still need to be cautious.
I feel that everyone should have the COVID jab and wear masks, adhere to the rules, and just needs to keep every other person safe.
Greg is currently in remission. For the family, it makes the sacrifice of the past year all worth it, but they can't wait to be free. Emma Birchley, Sky News, Staines.
Well, let's look at some of the stories on the front pages of the newspapers for you today. This is what they look like. The Health Secretary encouraging people to take COVID tests. Before attending Christmas party, the Metro proclaims, let it flow, let it flow, let it flow. See what they did there? Lateral flows. The Mirror has more details of what it says went on at a Downing Street Christmas party reportedly held at the height of lockdown last year. The Eye highlights the government's purchase of 114 million Pfizer and Moderna booster vaccine doses, enough to see the UK through 2023. According to The Guardian, ministers are paving the way to allowing GPs to stop monitoring patients with non-COVID underlying conditions in order to concentrate on the booster effort. Finally, The Times says France's President Macron privately branded Boris Johnson a clown and a knucklehead and says France papers regard Anglo-French relations as the worst since Waterloo. I did put that to the minister a few moments ago and he said it's pantomime season. They would say that, wouldn't they? And they need to do more to stop people coming across the channel risking their lives. After 7:30, going to be discussing the booster rollout with the chief exec of the Association for Independent Multiple Pharmacies. A lot of the heavy lifting falling to pharmacies. And shortly after that, talking about the global vaccination rollout with the chief exec of the World Health Organization Foundation. We'll also speak to researcher Dr. Joyce Poole about why she believes that bull elephant charged a safari vehicle in South Africa. Everything wrong about that. Now, a 15-year-old boy has been charged with murder and terrorism over a school shooting in Michigan that left 4 students dead. Police say Ethan Crumbly had recorded a video the night before the shooting where he threatened violence against the school. The prosecutor is also considering charges against his parents after they attended a school meeting hours before the shooting. The actor Alec Baldwin has said he did not pull the trigger of the gun that killed the cinematographer Helena Hutchins on a film set back in October. He made the claim in an interview with ABC to be aired in the US this evening. Investigators in New Mexico are looking into how live bullets got onto the set, but no criminal charges have as yet been filed. Police are looking for a suspect after an officer was sprayed in the face with an unknown substance while on duty at Westminster. The suspect ran off after the attack, which happened at around 8 o'clock last night. The officer did not need hospital treatment. The Supreme Court's Conservative majority has signalled a willingness to curtail abortion rights in the United States and possibly overturn the 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling that legalised terminations. The Supreme Court justices indicated they will uphold a restrictive Republican-backed Mississippi law that would outlaw the procedure after 15 weeks of pregnancy. The court is preparing to rule in the southern state's appeal to revive its ban after it was blocked by lower courts. A ruling is expected by the end of next summer. The Women's Tennis Association has suspended all tournaments in China over concerns for the safety of the player Peng Shuai. The Chinese star wasn't seen in public for 3 weeks after she accused a senior government official of sexual assault. The WTA says despite repeated requests, it's not been able to talk to her directly. Billie Jean King, the American tennis great and the founder of the WTA, is among those who've applauded the announcement. She's tweeted, "I applaud Steve Simon and the WTA leadership for taking a strong stand on defending human rights in China and around the world. The WTA is on the right side of history in supporting our players. This is another reason why women's tennis is the leader in women's sports." Quick look at the weather for you.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
It's back to being chilly again. Overnight frost, some snow, mainly on northern hills. Quite frosty at the moment, with wintry showers over northern, eastern and southwestern Britain, bringing some icy stretches.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
And some of the other stories that have caught our eye in the papers for you this morning. This is what the team have put together for you. Here we go. Do you remember that raid? One of the most audacious heists of all time. And it could be brought to life like never before at the Hatton Garden Vault, plundered by a gang of ageing burglars, remember, becomes a museum piece, apparently. The Museum of London are putting the final touches to plans to relocate the strong room to Smithfield Market so you can get a sense of the robbery itself. Do you remember that it was over a bank holiday weekend, wasn't it? And they drilled through. Almost got away with it, but they're now in prison because they just couldn't keep their mouths shut. Now, on a wing and a hair, the Daily Mail shows off a beautiful formation of starlings at Reedbeds Nature Reserve in Suffolk. Can you see? There you go. There's his bottom and there's his ear. Very good, isn't it? They're preparing to roost, apparently. Let's have a look at the Telegraph. A pinch me moment as entertainer Tommy Steele becomes a Sir for his contributions to charity and music. I was hoping we'd be able to play some music from him this morning, but I don't think we can, which is a shame. Flashbang Wallop, I think, was probably one of my favourite when I was a little girl. He's 84 and he was knighted by the Princess Royal. Lovely. Now, we've got more extraordinary shots for you this morning of the volcano on the Spanish island of La Palma. This is what it's doing today. She really has not had enough yet. There you go. These are drone pictures and show you another one of the fissures that's going from the top of the volcano, the mouth of the volcano, right down to the sea. The eruption shows no signs of stopping after more than 10 weeks. That fresh river of lava flowing seemingly endlessly and is threatening to engulf a church that so far survived the eruption. We were speaking to volcanologists who were telling us, this is really impressive, isn't it, that they think that it will continue on until at least Christmas, which is really not very far away now, is it? Coming up, going to be discussing the booster rollout with the chief exec of the Association for Independent Multiple Pharmacies. That to come. Government has denied that the vaccination programme is in confusion with those in their 20s and 30s unable to book a vaccination slot. A short while ago, I asked the Science Minister, George Freeman, when booster programme would be fully up and running. This is what he said.
We are accelerating that rollout and it is key and we are putting that in place so that the next generation, the next age cohort can get their booster jab as quickly as possible. But the NHS has got to put that alongside clearing the backlog of cancer cases and all of the other issues that the pandemic has caused. I think the public understand that. We have to do everything we can. The NHS is flat out. I was in constituency surgeries in my patch last week and the booster rollout and the jab programme is working. I'm not getting a lot of complaints from people saying the UK is behind on its vaccination programme. Of course, we all need to move fast, and we are, and the NHS is doing that. That's why we've put more money in to support that programme.
But there's confusion, and the Minister, I think, Tamara, good morning, was confused.
Good morning. Yes, George Freeman there saying that we know the government has said that all adults will be offered a booster jab by the end of January. That's going to be a pretty quick turnaround, more than 500,000 a day. But he said that people in their 20s should contact their GP surgeries. The firm message from the government is you should wait until they send you a text message. George Freeman said that he had got a text message about his booster next week. People are being told that they will go down the age range. So currently, if you're over 40, you should be able to get a text message to book in your booster. But people in their 30s, 20s, over 18s will need to wait until later in December to hear when your booster is going to be. We've heard that these websites where people are trying to book them are crashing, and that's because the government's message is you should wait to be told when it is going to be. And
what are the public supposed to think when even the Minister who's representing the government this morning doesn't know the rules?
Well, I think there's a lot of confusion because the NHS are supposed to be doing a plan for how they're going to roll these out, and that hasn't actually been published yet, because we know that GPs are quite concerned about how they are going to find the capacity to do vaccines. They're going to get money from the government for the vaccines, but what do they stop doing in order to free up capacity? The government wants to make more use of pharmacies, for example, but they'll need more volunteers. So you need a whole plan behind this, and we're still waiting to hear about that. The big news today, though, is that the government has done a deal with Pfizer to get 114 million more doses over the next 2 years. So that raises the possibility of a fourth dose, fifth dose, even beyond that. And they'll be able to be modified. So if Omicron or other variants need changes to the vaccine, that will be possible. But, of course, raises questions about how many are going to go to developing countries.
Indeed, so we asked him that as well, didn't we? Tomorrow's take at 9 o'clock. Looking forward to it. Thank you. 1,500 community pharmacies are to play an essential role, as Tamara was saying, in the rollout of booster jabs if the programme is to be completed by the end of January. Joining us now is Leila Hanbeck, the Chief Exec of the Association of Independent Multiple Pharmacies. Hello to you. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. A lot of heavy lifting falling to your members.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, we have been campaigning for this since the beginning of this year, and it's good to see that pharmacists are being involved in this program. Throughout the pandemic, pharmacists have kept the doors open, looking after patients and providing that sort of accessibility for patient care. So it's the right thing to do to get pharmacists involved.
Yeah, but how difficult will it be will your members be able to cope with the number of people that are going to need vaccinations, given that doctors' surgeries won't be able to do what they did previously, and a lot of these vaccine hubs, are not there like they were earlier in the year?
Yeah, so at the moment, we've got 1,400 pharmacies that have been providing the COVID vaccination service, and between them, they have jabbed about 15 million people. So that is a great number, and we know that community pharmacy can achieve this. But we do need the support from the government in terms of making sure that we prioritize things. So getting rid of red tape and making sure that we are properly funded and that the vaccine availability is there is obviously a key factor for us. But we are willing, we are ready, but we do need that support in order to move forward.
And how are your members coping with the pressure?
There are pressures, particularly during winter, and and we've been under pressure throughout the pandemic, in that we've kept our doors open and seen patients. However, it's important that we prioritise. We can only do this if priorities are made and the support of our government is received. In that, we're making sure that we put aside things that we no longer need to do for this period of time, and we focus on the COVID vaccination service. Again, we also do flu vaccination as well, so we've broken records on that as well. So we are willing, but the support is required for us to be able to manage this.
And what support are we talking about?
We're talking about prioritization, making sure that we're cutting the red tape. we are talking about making sure that we've got the right funding to enable us to carry on with our business as usual as well, because that's not going to go away. We have to make sure that we look after our patients. And also we have to make sure that we have relevant workforce in place in order to deliver this. And for that, that's kind of the support that we require from the government, and making sure that the systems work. For example, the national booking system, the vaccine supply, all of that. We don't want to be in a situation where we're chasing things up that consume a lot of time.
And people watching this morning, can they just pop down to their local chemist and say, put a booster in my arm?
People need to go through the national booking system. So, and the national booking system has been in place for some time. And if they have any questions, they can contact the 119 number in order to ask questions. But they can also ask their pharmacy teams in terms of what needs to happen, and the pharmacy teams will be able to support them and guide them in the right direction.
OK, it's good to talk to you. Thanks so much indeed for explaining that to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So our wonderful chemists, pharmacists are willing and ready, but they do need the support. Let's turn now to efforts to roll out the vaccine on a global scale, should we? And joining us is Anil Soni, here, Chief Exec of the World Health Organization Foundation. Hello to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme this morning. What more does the developed world need to do to help those less fortunate?
Well, thank you, Kay, for having me. The developed world needs to follow through on its pledges to donate doses and to ensure that the governments of low-income countries have support, doses, funding, technical support to roll out vaccines. Currently, less than 5% of the population of low-income countries has been vaccinated. Vaccine inequity is morally unjust. It's also epidemiologically and economically self-defeating. So it's in all of our interest to ensure that everyone is vaccinated.
Isn't that what COVAX is for?
Exactly. COVAX is delivering vaccines around the world. In fact, COVAX has contracts for 3.7 billion vaccines. Only 500 million have been delivered. Wealthy countries have promised to donate 1.4 billion doses, but less than 200 million have been delivered. We want to create the ability for everyone to use their voice and their wallet to contribute. People-powered vaccines can be an important motivator to elected representatives. The WHO Foundation created the campaign Go Give One, gogiveone.org, where you can give £4 and buy a vaccine for someone else and show that you are willing to do what you want your government to do, which is to follow through on its commitments to donate vaccines through COVAX.
So I put this to the government minister this morning. I don't know if you heard him or not, but he was basically saying there was a big fire, as we know, in India earlier on in the year. And as a result, there aren't enough vaccines to go around at the moment.
I don't believe that's true. There are more than 800 million excess doses in high-income countries across the G7, including the UK. That is a lot of doses that can be distributed. Are there enough doses to vaccinate everyone in the world? Not necessarily, but there are enough doses to vaccinate just as many people in low-income countries as in high-income countries. We have the vaccines now. What we need to do is follow through on our promise to deliver them and make sure that people have access.
How disappointed are you with the British government?
I am proud, as someone who spent 20 years working on HIV/AIDS, that in such a short period of time in this pandemic, we've developed vaccines and delivered them to more than 3.5 billion people. I am incredibly disappointed in everyone, any government and any leader who has facilitated the inequity such that people who are in high-income countries, including myself and my family, have access. We are privileged, we are protected. I am grateful for that. The fact that my family and relatives in other parts of the world don't have access, that's a tragedy, and we should all be held accountable for that.
Including the British government?
Indeed, any government that can do more, that isn't.
OK. 1 in 2 people in high-income countries, I believe, have been vaccinated. When you talk about low-income countries, it falls to 1 in 13 people. What impact is that vaccine inequality actually having in real terms?
It breeds variants. It also causes massive economic damage. It's in our interest, our self-interest, to ensure that everyone is vaccinated. The world is a petri dish. When you have a population that's well vaccinated, but another population that's not, it's in that population of people that is not well vaccinated that you have variants. That's where they emerge. And variants risk reducing the efficacy of the existing vaccine. And also it has massive economic damage. Trillions of dollars is what it's going to cost high-income countries, the UK, Europe, the United States, because low-income countries don't have high vaccine coverage rates.
The World Health Organization had set a target of 70% of the world, the globe, to be vaccinated by the middle of next year. Is that still within reach?
If we act, we're certainly not on track today. The interim target was to reach 40% of the world by the end of 2021. It's December 2nd. That's days, weeks away. We have to do much more quickly in order to keep that 70% target alive and real.
Okay. It's good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Kay.
The defence in the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell has been trying to cast doubt on the allegations of one of the key witnesses against her, who claimed that she was sexually exploited when she was just 14. Ms Maxwell's brother Kevin was in court and spoke afterwards to reporters, complaining about the condition of her detention. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner has this report, which contains flash photography.
Their sister is in the dock and Ghislaine Maxwell's siblings are suddenly in the spotlight. They heard graphic details in court of her alleged sex trafficking of teenage girls. But for Kevin Maxwell, it's been a welcome reunion.
Personally, it was gave me a tremendous sense of relief to be close to her, to be able to actually see her in the flesh. Even to be able to speak with her. That's the first time that I've spoken to her personally in over 500 days since her pre-trial detention started. And to see her looking pretty well, notwithstanding the conditions of detention, which are now the subject of a formal complaint to the United Nations.
The gruelling testimony in New York continued. Jane, a pseudonym, claims Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein abused her from the age of 14. But Maxwell's lawyer highlighted inconsistencies between what Jane said on the stand and her evidence to FBI investigators in 2019. Defender Laura Menninger said, "You came up with that memory in the last 2 years." Jane responded, "I don't believe I came up with a memory, no." Pressed on that, Jane said, "Memory is not linear." By calling upon apparent inconsistencies in the accounts given by the alleged victims testifying here, the defence hopes to build up this picture of false memories and convey the idea to the jury of them being unreliable witnesses. With more accusers waiting to testify, Ghislaine Maxwell's family are bracing themselves to hear further damaging accounts of her life and alleged crimes. Martha Kellner, Sky News, New York.
Of course, we will continue to cover that trial for you throughout, and more on COVID vaccination programme coming up in the next hour here on the programme. Labour will be with us here in the studio. Meantime, let me show you this. Fossils found in Chile are from a strange-looking dog-sized dinosaur species, apparently, but unlike man's best friend, wagging its tail meant trouble. The new species, described in a study in the journal Nature, has something never seen before on any animal: 7 pairs of blades laid out sideways on its tail and used as a unique slashing weapon. Whew. The newly identified armoured dinosaur inhabited the Patagonian region of Chile, not necessarily a 4-legged friend. I wonder if it was a herbivore. You've got to hope so, haven't you? Coming up. Also not man's best friend, we're going to be speaking to Dr. Joyce Poole about why she believes this elephant charged a safari vehicle in South Africa. Now, a group of trainee game rangers in South Africa have had a lucky escape after their game vehicle was charged by an elephant. This is what happened.
Get out, get out, get out, get on the car, get on the car, get on the car, get on the car.
Get on the car right now.
Why on earth did that happen? Dr. Joyce Poole is an elephant behaviour analyst and is with us. Hello to you, Doctor. All sorts of things wrong with that. What's your interpretation?
Well, I mean, this elephant was in must, which is a period of heightened sexual and aggressive activity that males go through typically once a year. But it's not that common that males will hit the car like that. In Amboseli, where I've worked and I've studied elephants for over 45 years, there has been only one incident, and it has the highest density of musk males on the continent. And that particular case was when some tourists got between two fighting males. In this case, it's hard to say without knowing the full context what happened. What I saw was that the vehicle was moving in the full video. The vehicle was moving. The elephants ahead, a family group, were agitated, and then the musk male came, out from the side as their vehicle was turning toward the musk male. It's an open vehicle. There's an outrigger with a spotter sitting on the front. Elephants don't like to see silhouettes of people. In a way, possibly it's asking for trouble.
Yeah, I mean, an elephant in must, you stay well away from them. They're properly grumpy, aren't they? They all then got out of the vehicle. We can see why they did, but in more danger once you're on foot, I'm guessing.
Yes, I mean, it's not advisable to just jump out of the vehicle, but I think in that case where they had another vehicle behind, that was the safest thing to do.
What do you do if you come across an elephant in must?
Well, I studied them. I actually discovered must in African elephants, and I studied them for many, many years. So I just, I stop the car, I turn off the engine, I keep my distance, and then, see what that, each individual is different. So I'm actually a little surprised. There are only 135 elephants in Salati Game Reserve. Apparently, according to what's online. And so I'm surprised those elephants aren't more relaxed with people. It's had tourists there for quite a number of years. So it's surprising that they're so agitated.
And they do tend to give you a warning, don't they, before they charge? They generally don't just charge.
Yes, and I don't know what happened before that video was filmed. Had they seen him already? In which case, I certainly wouldn't have driven up, gone closer to the females with a musk male on my left. I would have held back and let the elephants come to me.
Yeah, I think a lesson for quite a few people in that video. It's good to talk to you, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, bye-bye.
Thank you. Elephants are very calm animals generally. If you are lucky enough to go on safari, and as you were hearing there from the doctor, if the engine gets switched off, they will roam around the vehicle. They see it as neutral and they're not going to hurt you. But if there's an elephant in must, you give it a very wide berth. Coming up in just a few moments' time, we're talking about the rollout programme for boosters here in the UK. What's it looking like? Who can qualify, who can't, and when? It would appear that the Minister didn't know. We'll have more on that in just a few moments' time with Tamara here. And Labour are with us as well. Do stay tuned.